Hello, my name is Caitlin Skluzacek, and I will be doing a professional development session with Little Falls Community Middle School staff, and we're going to be talking about how to use Google Classroom and just all of the great things that it has to offer. On this page, you'll see that I will link the screencast, the whole little presentation, once I have concluded with that. And then I also have the link to the handout for Google Classroom that I'll be handing out to the staff here at Little Falls Community Middle School. Okay, so here is our outline. First of all, I will be handing out a handout. It's just a brief overview. It has 4 little corners, a red, yellow, green, blue corners that kind of go along with some really great things, or like the top 5 reasons why we should be using Google Classroom. I have some just little pictures that show what Google Classroom looks like on the handout. And then I also have a little explanation of we use Google Classroom, or we use Google Apps all the time. We use Google Docs, Gmail, Google Drive, Google Slides, and Google Sheets. Why wouldn't we use Google Classroom altogether? And then I also have a little section on what are some really good things that I think that you'll enjoy. The second thing that we'll be looking over is just reasons for implementing Google Classroom in your classroom. Then I'll be showing you some cool features that I think that you'll really enjoy, and just really what does Google Classroom look like to kind of ease the fear of sometimes starting something new and you think it's going to be very complex. I also have an explanation of how Google Classroom helps with student learning. And then I have some little snippets on accessibility requirements and consideration of safe use. And then I also just have desired results of what it looks like when you're using Google Classroom in your classroom, and what it will look like for you, your students, parents, and administration. And then I have a little bit of time for questions and comments at the end of the presentation. This handout was I made sure to include some really specific examples, but then just some examples that kind of catch your eye and keep you interested. I have top 5 reasons why you should use Google Classroom, meaning it's very easy to use for students. It's very easy for us to use as staff or as their teachers or their paras. I also think that Google Classroom is awesome for keeping us organized. Literally, as teachers, we have to be very organized people, and this is a great tool to use to keep us organized. And there's a really cool feature under number 4 that says there's many different uses. I'll touch more on that later. And then also, it's just number 5 is that Google Classroom is always, or just Google in general, is always wanting to make Google more user-friendly for all of their users. So I think that's really awesome. I have some examples of the Google Classroom layout and just how it's very simple, very easy to read, easy to view. And then I have just kind of that realization of Google Classroom as a culminating strategy. As teachers, we're always wanting to bring all of our loose ends and tie them into a nice little bow and say this is our finished product. Well, Google Classroom is that. We use at Little Falls Community Middle School, we use Gmail, Google Drive, Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, all of those different add-ons, or I guess you could say tools from Google. Why wouldn't we use Google Classroom? That helps us bring all of those smaller pieces together. And then also I have some really cool features in the blue that I think that you would really like as well as a teacher. Some say you are able to assign, collect, and grade assignments in an easy way. That is seriously so true. Google Classroom shows you quickly which students are done and which are not, so you don't have to wonder is so-and-so done? You can just look at it and say, oh, great, they surprised me and they are done. You can set up classes for each individual class. It's made very simple. You can either have students type their names in and invite them, or you can copy and paste all of your students' emails, addresses, and then you can invite them that way. And then there's also a little feature that students can email you through Google Classroom, so you no longer have to get emails to your school email, but it can be through Google Classroom. So that's really nice as well. I have a couple of reasons for implementation for Google Classroom in your classroom. I had mentioned earlier that Google Classroom helps keep students and teachers very organized by using Google Docs and just Google Drive in general. And so if you feel really capable of using Google Drive and Docs and all of those other programs with Google, you'll feel like, oh my gosh, Google Classroom is a breeze. However, if you're still just kind of learning how to use those different programs through Google, they're not hard to grasp. They're easy to kind of manipulate and kind of work through, and it just is a really great organizational tool. Another reason why I really love Google Classroom is it keeps students engaged, or it might keep their engagement or increase it. And so students like to feel like, oh, my life is organized. They like to feel like I know what's going on. And so Google Classroom does a really great job of assisting students with feeling like, okay, I know what's expected of me. Another reason why we can implement Google Classroom is communication with parents is simplified. Parents they don't have to have access if you don't want them to, but they can have access to your Google Classroom, and so it's really nice for them also to know what's going on in their students' class and what did they do this day and what did they not do that day. And so it's just another thing that parents can say, okay, I'm going to make sure that I connect with you on that. And then another reason why we would want to implement Google Classroom is just it's practice for students when in the future they're going to be submitting professional documents, and we want them to be able to say like, oh my gosh, I've done this before in middle school, or I've done this in high school, and I feel confident with submitting professional documents. So on this slide, you'll see that there are some really cool features that I think that you will really love. I have 3 pictures here. One of the pictures on the left, it shows that there's lots of options when you're in that lower right-hand corner of Google. They have that plus symbol saying like, hey, what do you want to create? Well, Google Classroom allows you to create an announcement, an assignment, a question, or they allow you to reuse a post for each assignment or question or announcement that you create. And so I really like this feature because it's not just assignments that you're having your classrooms or your students get from you on Google Classroom, but they're also able to communicate with one another through questions or commenting on each other's products. The middle picture is showing you just an example of how organized it is. On here, I have 3 examples of my American history class, and then I also have 1 example in the blue of my 8th grade geography class. And so it's just really nice, again, super organized and easy for you to view. On the far right-hand corner, I have just another way of seeing your classes and how it's laid out. It's just a little drop-down bar on the left that you can click on, and you'll see all of your classes there. So that's really nice. I know sometimes when we start with technology, it can be really intimidating, but looking at these pictures, you can see like they don't have any added frills that confuse you. It's just everything that you need to be successful. Again, on this page, I have more examples of what those pictures or those views look like for you. This is an example of one of my American history classes. You'll see in the 3 arrows pointing up, it says stream, students, about. The stream is just a steady stream of all of the assignments that you're giving to your students. The students category is where all of the students that you have, so you might end up saying, oh my gosh, I need to take so-and-so out of 6th hour because they move to first hour, that can easily be done here. And then the About section is where you have the option of posting longer term documents or links or things that you want your students to always have access to. In the bottom of this picture with the little purple sun, you'll see that that's an example of the 15 done and the 3 not done, so you can quickly see who's done and who's not. And then in the upper right hand corner with the little lightning bolt, you'll see that Google Classroom allows you to have a very controlled screen of saying, like, I'm going to house this assignment here and I can grade it here and then I can transfer it into Skyward. And so it's really nice that they show you, these are the people who are done and these are the people who are not done, and then you can grade them right there. Here's how Google Classroom helps with student learning, and I just wanted you guys to know that students will always know the following little examples when they're looking at their Google Classroom. So they'll always know if an assignment is due or late or pending. They'll always know announcements from the teacher, so that if when they log into their Google Classroom, into your class, they'll say, oh my gosh, I got a new announcement from my teacher, or they will know that that is like an assignment or an announcement that was probably from last week or the week before. It's very organized. They'll also know that they have the capability to communicate with other students in their class, whether they have questions or concerns. They can comment if you give them the option to do that. You can have them comment on each other's comments, and then they can kind of assist one another with any questions that they have. Google Classroom also helps with student learning because it just helps them stay organized. I've said that multiple times, but I can't say it enough. And then also it just keeps them organized and checking back in for more updates. So it's just always kind of like a continuous checklist of whether or not something is done or needs to be completed. I talk a little bit about accessibility requirements because students will always ask me, do I need Wi-Fi to work on Google Classroom? And they do need Wi-Fi for Google Classroom. I always tell them that if they don't have Wi-Fi at home, that they should have that responsibility, or that just like go get an attitude of, okay, I'm going to find somewhere in town that does have Wi-Fi for me to use, and then I can access and submit assignments. Also, another really awesome thing is Google Classroom is free to use for teachers and students. I have a little bit in my presentation about consideration of safe use. Something that I really, really love about Google Classroom is it's a controlled environment where students can comment and kind of put their opinions out there without it being on a public forum where they could potentially get hurt from that posting or that comment. It's really nice because it's not public for all to see. So to be in a Google Classroom, you either have to be invited by the teacher or you have to get the class code to join from the teacher. And so it's just very controlled. It's not some public place that they're going to comment and later on realize, oh my gosh, that was totally like the whole world can see. I have a page on my presentation about desired results because I think it's really important as teachers and students to know, like, why are we using Google Classroom? What's the whole point? And so I just say one of the major desired results is students and parents have the same platform for class materials. So if multiple teachers are using Google Classroom, it's really nice for parents and students to only have to really know one platform for this type of classroom activity. And it just goes without being said that it increases student engagement so that more participate. Students are turning in homework and it's actually on time. That is a huge desired result as a middle school teacher. Students are responsible for when their assignments have deadlines. Again, huge for middle school and high school students to know, like, this is a deadline. I have to turn this in. And then the fifth example of a desired result is administration can feel more at ease knowing that the communication between students and parents and teachers it's strong and it's ongoing using Google Classroom. So the administration can know, like, I know that my teacher is communicating with students and parents about the expectations that are happening in that classroom.